Wow, what a day. Anybody who saw my video last week, there was a theory that had been pointed out by a couple people. I'll put a link to that video right here. But was pointing to potentially some movement happening in a lot of these same stocks over the course of basically starting this week, moving up to September 9th, somewhere in that range. And it looks like we definitely started to see a little bit of that yesterday and a lot of it today with GameStop, I think, finished up 27% on the day. AMC up 20%. Clove roughly at 9. I think BlackBerry finished the day up 9, but hitting 1150 right now in after hours. A lot of movement, and there was a lot of other stocks that were moving as well. I think SPRT. It looks like KOSS even got a little bit of action in there. So a lot of these stocks moving, but the biggest ones that I've been tracking at least are GameStop, AMC, and Clove. Keeping my eye on BlackBerry, but I didn't actually jump in on any plays there. So not sure if we have full confirmation that the theory I laid out last week is true, but it's sure starting to look like it. So the next question, I guess, is will it continue to go and how far will they go? I think this question is different for each stock. We can start with GameStop because to me, this is the easiest one to answer in terms of what I'll be watching for. So GameStop's definitely done this before. Obviously here we're looking at January hitting 483, but since then it ran up to 350 in March. Okay. And then it ran up to 350, hitting a wall again in June, and so for me, options chain, everything else with GameStop, I'm just going to kind of throw out the window. And really, I'm fully expecting GameStop to at least make a run from here to 350. That's my expectation. At which point, it'll either break through 350, and who knows what could happen after that. I would imagine at least a test of 480, potentially much, much higher. If you look at the previous chart and kind of compare it with AMC. And again, AMC had a lot to do with the option chain too. But this is your, AMC January, March run up, close to, it actually had an earlier one in May, but kept hitting this same resistance. And then as you kind of, scale out and see what happened after that, it almost makes January look like a little blip on the radar as it hit the gamma squeeze and continued to run higher, almost running to triple of what it had previously hit back in January. So coming back to GameStop now, like I said, I'll be looking for it to kind of bounce off this 350. If we do go up and hit the 350 and break through it, who knows how high it can go. I'll be holding on, getting ready to board the rocket ship. Now, it could get hammered down from there. Again, like it has the last two times. The way I'm going to play this one, which I've been holding through this run up and this run up this time around, if we hit 350 and start to crash down, I'm probably going to be looking to exit somewhere around 320 to 330-ish. Get out, let the stock come back down, let it settle in like it's been doing the last two times, and then look to load back up in the future, potentially even, in late November, moving into December, as this same type of theory plays out again. Now, AMC's interesting, and we'll pull that chart up right now. So, with AMC, it had previously run up just like GME. Like I said, this is January back here. It ran up in March, but now this time in June, as it was starting to run up, it hit a gamma squeeze. That propelled it to the top of the option chain, which happened to be somewhere around 70 at the time, and it got, locked right there and then got hammered down from there and, continued to trade lower, accumulation, everything else, kind of get down into this $30 range. This time around, the chain ends at $80 on the weeklies and $145 on the monthlies. A ton of volume poured in today. Let me see if I can pull that up. So looking at today's option chain for AMC, 117,000 volume here at the $40 strike, 42,000 at 42, 85,000 at 45, 97,000 at 50. I mean, just a ton of volume in here altogether. We obviously won't know how much of that'll become open interest. It could just be contracts trading back and forth. But my assumption is this option chain is going to be loaded up and ready for a gamma squeeze that'll at least take us through 80, because that's where I said, the weeklies run to. But at the same time, it also, the monthlies, if we go out to some of these monthly contracts, they go all the way up to 145. Now, we did see some volume in there today, at the 145 mark, but it really needs to get some more in here to kind of fuel that range between 80 and 140. I'm not going to look through the entire option chain, but the way I'm playing this is going to be very similar to GME. If we bust through either resistance level, 80 or 145, I'm going to be looking for a drawback. We get to 80, maybe it runs to 90, 100 and starts falling. I'm going to be looking to exit somewhere around $70 and let it kind of come down and level out. Now, if we get up to 140 and break past that and blow through the entire option chain, same type of thing. Let's see how high it runs. But if it immediately comes back down, I'm exiting in that 130 range on the way back down, and I'll jump back into this play later. Another thing I want to look at is any sort of unusual volume that came in on the chain today. So we're looking at TRADYTICS right now, AMC option summary. Overall, it's showing that as you would expect, the flow today on AMC was bullish. Basically calls outweighing puts by almost a 0.84 ratio. If we take a look at, let's scroll down a little, some of the unusual contracts, it does seem as though the unusual contracts, which are the ones that we know for sure are what's shown here, like anything over here means that the volume that came in exceeded the open interest. Now, these aren't too significantly different. Like, for instance, right here, I'm looking at the AMC put at $63, 64 volume versus open interest of 20. 75 volume versus open interest of 34. Nothing much to get too excited about. So a lot of unusual contracts on puts, but nothing that I think is going to really affect the chain. A ton of large orders that came in today. If we scroll down here, we could see, 31,000 in volume on one order at the $50 strike. 22,000 in volume at the 45 strike. 20,000 at the 40 strike. These are all for different chains though. So really going to be interested to see how that plays out tomorrow when all of that converts into open interest and we kind of get an idea on if we have gamma squeeze potential. I'm expecting it to be so because a ton of volume came pouring in this afternoon. Now, moving on to Clove. Coming into today, the entire option chain already had major potential at the $9, $10, and $15 strikes. Like the other two, we saw a ton of volume pour in today. We'll obviously be able to evaluate more tomorrow morning when we get a chance to look at how that volume converts into open interest. But my assumption is that we're likely going to catch a ton of resistance at the $9 level and then again at the $10 level because those are the strikes that are heavily loaded. I'm going to pull up TRADYTICS right now just so we can take a look at that. So again, bullish flow as expected, calls outweighing puts. But as we scroll down here and look at the $9 strike, and this is prior to today, we're looking at 46,000 calls versus 6,000 puts. $10 strike, 64,000 calls versus 19,000 puts. Even the 12 for that matter is pretty high with 47 to 7. And then the $15 strike, 61,000 to 6,000. I don't know if there's enough here to carry us all the way through to 43, but that's something that we'll really get to see later on as we tomorrow morning as we kind of see what came in. Now, a lot of unusual flow on the put side again, just like we saw with AMC, but not a huge amounts. Volume right here is what, 50 contracts versus open interest of 13. So that was absolutely puts that got bought. New positions today, 60 versus 11. Nothing too major. Now, when we look at large orders, we did see some large puts come rolling in at the 15, 10, and 13 strikes, but also a ton of volume in calls coming in throughout the day. So again, something to kind of keep an eye on as we look at tomorrow and see how much of that converts into open interest. If we take a look at today's option chain, or I guess I should say this week's expiration, we saw 41,000 come in at the $9 strike, 34,000 at the 850. These two levels I think are significant because prior to today, the $8 strike was just barely, outpacing puts, calls versus puts with 10,000 to 6,000. If these all represent new buy orders today, or for the majority, that'll really start tipping the scales to where we could see some fuel getting added in from the option chain. Same thing at 850 as we're trading above there right now. But like I said, that $9 strike, the graph that we looked at a little while ago was everything prior to today. That's going to update tomorrow. All this open interest will update tomorrow, including, volume we saw come in here at the monthly chain. And the other thing I want to point out, again, with Clove, similar to AMC, is the weeklies close at 17. But if we come out here to, let's say November, we see that the November chain actually extends out to 43. So I'm kind of going to be playing this the same way. In terms of Clove, if we can get past that $17 mark, which is where the weekly expiration happens, if this thing was to propel up that high, I would expect some resistance and maybe a little bit of drop there. But at the same time, that means we're going to be getting past that $15 strike and the 9 and 10, which are absolutely loaded, which could give us the potential to kick off a gamma squeeze to 43. Now, once we kind of get up to that 43 number, I'm going to play it the same way I said with AMC. Let's see how high we can propel past that. If it looks like we're falling back down, I really don't want to be holding on to calls in a reverse gamma squeeze. So I will be looking to exit somewhere around 40 and then jump back into Clove for the long haul, because I do think this is a play that has huge long-term potential. With all of these three, there's an insane amount of short interest, FTDs, and overall market manipulation, and breaking to these new highs, past 350 for GameStop, past 145 for AMC, or past 43 for Clove. Any of those numbers could set off a short squeeze in any of these stocks, and that's where things could really get interesting. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on everything. Today was super exciting. I would expect things to keep rolling this week with maybe some potential to get hammered down on Thursday or Friday due to the weekly options expiration and market makers trying to hammer it back down. But it kind of seems like the way things went today, they may have been losing control, especially with AMC and GameStop. Clove, I think we might see a little bit more resistance because we haven't really got past the 9 or 10 strikes yet. But I guess if you're playing weekly, obviously this isn't financial advice, but if you're playing weeklies like expiring this week, I would kind of be hesitant with any of these to be carrying past Wednesday, only because we've seen these stocks get hammered down tremendously on Thursdays and Fridays. Now, if you have options dates that are expiring maybe 2 to 3 weeks out, then I'd say you're probably a little bit safer, as these plays could drag out into next week and the week after, leading up to September 9th. All that being said, play at your own risk. Make sure you have your own exit strategy. For me, it's going to be GameStop, breaking through that wall at 350 that we've been at twice. If we can't do that, that's going to be my exit signal. With Clove and AMC, it's going to be if we gamma squeeze to the top of the chain, can we continue the run? Does this kick off a gamma squeeze? If not, get the exit in before we see that reverse gamma squeeze and the changes start unwinding. All right, that's it for tonight. I will be going live tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. on the West Coast, 8 a.m. on the East Coast. I'll be reviewing the option chain. We'll see how much of this volume actually converts into open interest. We'll see what kind of gamma squeeze potential we have on the table. And, like always, just kind of talking through the pre-market, answering questions, having fun, and hopefully looking for another green day. All right, you guys take it easy. Have a nice night.